Okay, so doing thatched roof. I want to continue from what I have in the video. Problem is I don't have any of those files anymore. It's been 4 years since I worked on it. Okay, so when about where I left off, I was building these guys. These are the splines that are left over from that project, maybe a little modified, but it's about where we left off. I built a secondary batch, which is basically taking this one and duplicating it and just getting it all to fit into a certain space, a rectangular space to be specific. The goal is to create a trim sheet or a trim object. The research I've been using, man, the images may have changed, but for the most part, the goals haven't. And there's really just two goals that I'm after. I want, a nice, clean thatching setup like this that we see that's nice and trim. Have a little natural breakage, round pieces and everything, but also create a little bit more of a messy one that has a little bit more overhang. This guy has already been established. This is the result of the last videos that I've been able to recover. Create a simple render, create an image using the alpha mask and the actual 3D model, and I got a nice image out of it. This was the original thatching texture that I made. I used a gradient to get the basic color of the straw. I was real happy with it. So we're going to continue the steps that we had started moving forward with this object. So what I'll do is build a basic box. I'm going to use an FFD and shape it like clay, and that would hopefully allow me to get a low poly object that I can use to build going forward. We're going to freeze it because that's our high poly. It'll be a modular piece, again a box. We'll go ahead and add some geometry. The goal again is to get me a usable texture tile. Alright, so those UVs are good. Now we're going to go ahead and manipulate the model. I'm going to use an FFD for this, so I like an FFD. It allows me to move in big, happy steps, kind of like clay software or a clay procedure. Now, for the high poly, a couple things need to happen. First of all, these are spline based objects, and I do not want to lose their spline proceduralness. It gives me a lot of awesome methods of editing this that allow me to go back and clean this up if I need to tighten this up. In fact, I've had to work this piece in to get it to fill that square. I've got some video footage I can share that so you can see what's going on, but it's a lot of tedium, but it did make for a good capture. So I'm using this same setup again. It's the same basic structure I used in the first couple videos. So while keeping them in spline format, I will be able to edit them just as quickly as that. So what I need to do is get them ready for being an editable poly. So I'm just going to add an edit poly modifier to these guys. So I'm going to select them both and do it one step at a time. So this will technically, in a procedural method, convert them to an editable poly object. Now all I got to do is trash can the modifier and it'll go back to the spline base. Now the next thing I need to do is the vertex paint, which is going to be critical in terms of getting the separation between these elements in the masking and substance. So in here with the vertex paint modifier, I can choose a color. So we'll go ahead and view it. I'll select the polygons that I want. Let's go ahead and do all of the wheat. Tap that button. Now I can go here, click on this one, choose a new color. Purple looks good. And these guys are ready to go. So this is the actual high poly structure. So I'm going to take this high poly, this name, copy. I'm going to grab this as well. I want to export them out together. I don't have to, but it just will make it easier. So now I've got a low poly and now I've got a high poly. If I get no errors in the export process, everything's good. Great. So now what we'll do is we'll head over to Substance and start that process. I'm going to do a new file. I'm going to use universal rendering pipeline in Unity, but it doesn't exist in the input, so I'm just going to use the HD. Doesn't really matter at this particular moment. Go find my file. We're going to do the low poly first. Go ahead and hit OK. Everything in here is great. Alright, so there's the low poly RUVs. They're very square, but that's very intentional. It's going to probably create distortions and warping and such, but we're talking about thatching. It's a roof object that the player probably won't stare at. So we're hopeful that this will give us an effective, useful, tileable map. Let's bake. Here we'll bring in our high poly object and we'll see if there's any red. If there's red, then we just need to up max frontal distance a little bit and then the max rear distance a little bit. I typically like to move them equally. In the ID, we need to change this from material color to vertex color. If it doesn't give us an ID, it'll either go black or some other color, but we can see that the ID map gives us a good color. There might be some gaps in our geometry. Always with the testing. You can also up the max frontal distance. Return to painting. And we've got basic target objective that we're after. Now, I technically got a round object that will allow me a lot of versatility in the 3D space. The thing is, I just got to be maintaining an awareness that when I use it, it's going to have a top and a bottom type scenario in the actual normal map, and that will be obvious in the game engine. Alright, so there we go, the basic thatch. Now with this guy, we can add that opacity map to this and get that fuzzy detail like hair on a character that you can help dress this up even further, and it'll have the same color palette, texture, and normal maps. So it'll look great. So in here, a basic wood is really all we need to look for. I've got a wood object here. I don't want it finished. I want it pretty beat up. Stylus wood beam. Let's try that out. Now I want to have two. I'm going to have where one will be the band and two will be the actual wheat. They're both the same material based on fast research. So that's why we did the bake though. So here I'll do a mask with color selection. Do the same thing here, mask with color selection. Here we'll pick the wheat, and here we'll pick the band. Cool. Now, sweet. Let's get the material basically set up. I want the same basic material for both colors. So we'll just build it once, and then we'll just drop duplicates inside of that. Okay, I like this. This is heading in the right direction. So what we'll be able to use this for is to create a more substantial roof piece, and we'll still have this to be able to help break up patterns and other details. So let's go ahead and export out these textures. I'm going to save this scene and put it in here. Thatching. Let's finish this up real quick. So drop that into the wheat folder. Sweet. Now I'm just going to hold Alt and left click and drag, and it'll make it'll make a variation of that material for us. Now stick it into this folder. And now this one we can play around with the color a little bit more just to give it a little bit more uniqueness. And then I'm also going to rotate it 90 degrees in the texture side so that it follows this little band, and see if we can find a fun little one. Okay, so there's our basic thatch piece. Done pretty quickly based off of the other production that we've been able to do with the other pieces. From here I can actually create the actual other objects, so we'll get to that here in a second. Here is the normal map. You can see that we've got most of the actual image taken care of. There's good tiling aspects about it, and eventually what would be better is to actually apply this material to the straw pieces so that it follows the contours. This is such minutia on this that it's not really that important. What I'm after is going to be much simpler, and this nails what I need. So save, and we're done with that. Cool. Next, build the actual wall. So I've got this. Hold shift, make a copy. Low poly thatch build. Let's go ahead and just say thatch build. Cool. This material now is going to be this one, so I'm going to take this one, opacity, and drop it all the way up. We're going to go find our textures. Really the only one that we're going to see is the normal map. Drop that into the diffuse. There we go. Now, I have a lot of stuff that I can do with this. Detach. So, might not be a problem. Now, as I said before, if we take the bottom and use it, we're going to see some issues in terms of how the normal maps are reading. Mostly that's going to be in these guys. So what we really need to do is just flip this face, these set of faces, and these set of faces, and I think we'll be okay. Good enough. Detach element. Now I've got a wall, got a roof piece that will allow me to start building up this basic shape using the symmetry tool. So let's go ahead and get that started. So a couple of symmetries. We'll do the mountain work. So I just used the FFD to get a little height on this guy, and what I need to do now is get the UVs set up on here so that it will behave in a little bit more expected manner. Go into the top view. Faces. I am going to grab all of these faces and do a planar projection. And then cool. Thatched roof. Boom, boom. Collapse 2. Now I'm going to what I need to have happen is I'm going to build 3 more duplicates, and then I got to weld them all up into a single object. So one at a time. So let's see. Hold Shift and just get that here. We'll do one at a time. Well, okay. So what I need to have happen is with this particular piece, slice it up to where it matches where this guy is. So the geometry on the vertical is all fine. Just going to get it on the latitude. Or the, I guess that'd be the longitude, wouldn't it? No, it's the latitude. There we go. It's hitting the wrong button. Okay. So we'll do a connect. Perfect. Keep those dudes. Delete those dudes. Next is just matching the vertices when we get to the welding part. Get to that in a second. Let's go ahead. that guy. I think this one will sit over here. And this one. Yeah, that's, I guess I could have made it with an instance, huh? Let's export it out. I'll open up Unity. So we're looking at the final bit here where we started off building the splines into a renderable image. That gave us a transparency, what we could put on a planar object. Then in this video, we worked on a 3D object that could represent the actual full-size object of the roof, which is what was built by the end of this video. We can combine these, like I said, to fill in areas where the pattern may be a little too obvious, to give us a little extra punch on what we're after. And of course, the whole point of having this little frilly stuff is to give us more detail, and it just allows us for a lot more complexity in our scene. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.